Audacity rolling.
Alright.
Let me just
Yeah,
set my...
everyone check Audacity, make sure it's ready. Good morning, everyone. This is episode 163. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It was a bit of this and a bit of that. The Harbinger's having troubles. We're having troubles. What's wrong with the world? Alright, so we should be ready to go very, very shortly. We only have a couple of entries. Tip of the week. So let me just random that up. Random.org. Or I could just flip a coin. I'm handy. Alright. Coin flipper. Heads or tails. One is heads.
Okay.
The hell's that? That's not a head.
Did you get heads or tails?
I got a euro coin which hasn't got a head on it. I'll just use random.org with just between 1 and 2. It's 2.
All right.
Yeah, that was terrible. Okay.
Recently, though?
Who? Mariachi. Well, they just won again.
All right. What, Dak?
So assume your video.
We're starting. Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna get my charger cord and I won't be in your way.
Question: How I did some testing on Audacity,
Love you.
but now when I do it, it's playing the previous test over my new test. How do I get rid of the old ones?
You gotta just delete that track. Just there should be a little X in the
Top left, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing more complex than that. Put my audio there. Alright. Now, given there's only... I'll read the second one, Chill, even though there's only 2.
That's fine.
Now, Pez, for the class stuff, I've just pasted all the stuff in there. I've gone over it briefly, but not in detail. How much of that will you be able to talk to?
Everything but the gunslinger sniper stuff.
Okay.
I didn't pay too much attention to.
Red, you were able to cover the
stuff I put in there? Yeah.
The gunslinger sniper?
Oh, sure.
Alright. I'll just
So it goes
basically...
live next Tuesday, right?
Say again?
Yesterday. It goes live next Tuesday, right? Not yesterday.
I thought it was yesterday too.
For 2.10?
Yeah,
I was
just
really
for
expecting
a
it.
brief moment, and I
Right.
got kind of disappointed. But
And I was like, wait, we've only won 2 planets. Okay, there's one more to go.
Only 2 weeks. Yeah. Alright, I think we're ready. Everyone got Audacity rolling. Red.
Yes. Did you start, or did you tweet?
I have not, but I will. That's a good idea.
Because I noticed you didn't last week.
I did, but it was late.
Okay.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I saw your tweet, and that came actually before my tweet.
Yeah, I think I might have tagged you just to get your attention without saying anything.
It worked. Alright, this will just take a sec. God, this better not run long. It's gonna be a long, long day. Alright, tweeting now. Alright. My Audacity, just do a quick test. Test. Ooh, picking up lots of signal. Alright, that's good. Alright. Red, you are recording.
I am recording.
Bears.
yep.
And Chill.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier. Yes.
Yay.
Right. Then let's do this.
Going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast. I advise everyone to leave before more Imperial troops arrive. This is episode 163, being recorded on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014. I'm your host, Chill, and with me is my co-host, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
And with us today are Pez and Red. So, Pez, you've been raiding with us for a while, and let us know a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to.
Well, not playing Star Wars. What's the deal with the Harbinger? I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but haven't been able to play all day. Came up about an hour ago, just when I had to kind of start getting things ready for the show. So haven't really been able to play.
We'll be going into that in detail.
Yeah,
so.
I'll let you talk about it. I heard you said, you said you had something to say about it, so I'll let you talk about it. But basically just the Stronghold stuff, that's kind of been sweeping the nation the last couple of weeks. It's great. It's kind of a weird thing. We play the game to, we raid and we do all these things to get gear and all the flashy purple stuff, and now it's just decorations. Nobody cares about anything else. It's just decorations. We raid, and then all the purples drop, and it's pass, 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 pass. No decoration. And that's pretty much what everybody's in it for. It seems like the shiny purples epics have been replaced by end tables. So it's just weird to see, but it's brought a lot of good life to the game. I'm really, really excited to see everybody happy about it. I think the response has pretty much been good across the board. So it's great to see. I like it, and it was something I definitely wasn't going to be interested in right away. I didn't think I'd like it, but every time something drops, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's going to go good in this room, or that's going to look good right here. So I've kind of gotten sucked into it a little bit as well. And the guild ship is awesome. I've pretty much parked all my characters on it now, and just sit in that one room that has everything I need. If I could just get mission terminals, I would never have to leave. But now I have to go back and forth to turn in my PvP quests. So the one thing, Tio, you mentioned last week about how you feel pressured to log in and play, and that's my only concern. Not a bad problem to have, of course, but I just PvP. Like, I don't do a lot of other stuff. I PvP, I raid, a few other things. When I level characters, I don't go to the planets. I don't have ships on half of my alts. I just sit on the fleet. So when I feel now like I have to stay on one character and I have to do all these different things. So I don't log out of my main, and now I have to do all these things that I'm not necessarily interested in because I feel like I have to. And I know everybody's hit all these points, but it's tough for me to hit that 35,000 because now PvP, what's 500 a piece? Every Warzone's a 500.
That's a lot.
So it just climbs so slowly for me. But I've been branching out a little bit and trying some new things. So it definitely is good. They've figured out a way to manipulate your attention, and they can kind of just decide where the masses is going to go each week. We need to bring people back to Flashpoints, or we need to bring them back to PvP, or Starfighter. I played some Starfighter this week, and I hadn't played that since it got released. So it is a good thing. They've really found a way to just recycle all the content in the game, everything. Just bring it all back, and now everybody's playing everything again. So it's cool, except now we're doing it for decorations instead of other loot. But
I would suggest that in thinking about this, I think the best way to think about this is you should play the way you want to play. And if that gets you to the cap in a given week, fantastic. For example, just a little foreshadowing, there are rumors from somewhere that I'm not going to go into that next week will be very heavily PvP focused. So next week will be your week. So you'll just own, in terms of earning points, it will just come really easily. Whereas this week it's more all about crafting.
Yeah, this week was kind of odd. Some of those objectives were a little different. And
so,
yeah, go ahead.
So people should just play the way they want to play and not really feel pressured that they have to get their points.
Yeah.
I know, like last week when Utini Knights was really pushing to stay on the leaderboard,
Yep.
we all felt it, but I think we will burn out if we just are forced to do all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
do what you're comfortable playing. I did not play any Galactic Starfighter because I just didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
I just found what I could do to contribute.
And I still do that. I tell myself, oh, I should do a flashpoint hard mode. I should do this. I should craft some stuff, and I just find myself clicking on the PvP queue over and over. Anyway, so
That's the way it
you
should
know,
be.
I'll make that mad rush at the end of the week to get my points, but you know, I still do what I want. But it is cool how they figured out how to just recycle all
That's
old content. So
Yep. I'm doing
Yep.
dailies I've never seen before. So.
I know heroics on planets that I've never touched. So it's cool. I like it. It's got a lot of people excited about it, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, I had a crazy urge to play some other BioWare games. I found Dragon Age on my Xbox 360 and was like, oh, I completely forgot that BioWare made that game. And so I put that in and I played it, and then I was like, man, I kind of want to play Mass Effect. So I downloaded Mass Effect off the arcade, played that for a little while, and then I don't know if anybody's played the Knights of the Old Republic on the iPad. The
I heard about it, but didn't.
That's the only version I have, and it's not that bad. It's a pretty good copy. The movement's a little weird, but you never really need to, be fast paced with the movement in the game anyway.
Yeah.
It's just all menus for the most part. So I played a little of that, and yeah, so just kind of enjoying some other BioWare games. They're all just great. So took a little break from Star Wars, but yeah, that was my week.
All right, awesome. Red, how about your week?
I didn't get to play the game as much as I normally do. I ended up going on vacation for, what 5 days?
Wow.
But I had a blast on vacation. It was a real nice time. Before I left, though, I did make sure that I got into the conquest for this week, and on important characters, really rushed through getting my 35k contribution on the imp side and the pub side. I was really pleased. The guild that didn't on the Bastion on the pub side that didn't get first last week or the previous week did get first this week. So
Cool.
yeah, they were really motivated to knock it out and seemed to do really well. It was the Balmora pub side. I think the advantage being that on the Bastion, the pub is a much smaller population. It's kind of the mirror to the Harbinger. Harbinger's got a bigger pub population. And since it was faction split, the competition for the pubs was actually quite a bit less, which gave us a big edge. That was pretty nice. Otherwise, it was interesting watching the Imp Guild that I'm in as they were kind of moving forward. At the beginning of the week, we basically had decided that we weren't going to try and be number one on the boards. They had this interesting strategy. Because they have both an Imp Guild and a Pub Guild, they've decided that they're going on a 3-week cycle. So 1 week is going to be Imp goal for taking the planet, and then the next week will be taking the planet for the Pub side. And then the third week is supposed to be, this is when we really focus on doing ops. Because I guess, like I had brought up last week, there's not a lot of time for ops when you're focused hard on taking planets.
Yeah.
What ended up happening, though, was that the Imp Guild was representing, I think they were staying at second. And I even though I was on vacation, I was watching the chatter, and they were holding second all week long. And so on the last night, a bunch of them rallied and decided, hey, what the heck, and just slammed it out and grabbed first place on the Imp side Balmora themselves. So worked out pretty handy, I mean, if you can focus one guild, but if you can get them both, why not, right?
That's right.
So that was a pleasant surprise coming back from vacation and having had that taken care of. I am curious about this week. So my pubside guild in particular is on CZ198. I haven't had a chance to find out what the imps are doing, but CZ198 only has one perk of all of the conquest rewards, and it's for crafting all of the sub items before that one that you take all of them and combine it into a single, whatever it is, thing for your
Invasion
ship.
Force?
Yeah, invasion force, right? So, and the double is on 250, so it's 500 per. Now, granted, the base for the invasion force is 2,000. So I guess if you just kept working on making those, and it's like, you know, I guess it ends up being several thousand because you have to make all the individuals, which are 500 each, and then make the 2,000 one with the bonus. But there's no other perks, right? So it's almost, for CZ198 anyway, it is definitely just a crafting paradise. Very strange.
It's a very weird choice. In the list of invasion perks, it just says economy and crafting, but they're all crafting. So
Wow.
what does economy mean?
Yeah. It's interesting. So I've started crafting those. Unfortunately, like I've been kind of tracking how my personal prestige was going, and then how the guilds were doing, and I haven't been burning through all of my mats, just for the sake of doing it. I've been making sure that I get my contribution done and then help the guild as is needed. So since this week is all about crafting, I've got lots of mats prepped. I think I've got, like, in just one category range, I've got something like 60 that I could craft on my arms tech alone. I haven't even checked the other characters. And as a result of the conquest having come out, I've actually got my 3 mains on the pub side are all in the same guild. And, I've been traditionally less active on the Imperial side anyway, so those were already together anyway. It's ending up being a real benefit since I'm character craft hopping. Well, all my imps and all my pubs are contributing to the same guild, and those guilds are doing well, so I'm happy with it. It's interesting. So I also did go ahead and include a screenshot here because it turned out I had been really confused about what was working, and I noticed today when I logged in that it turns out your prestige score for an individual stronghold only depends on your percent completion.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with, like, I was thinking that, they were talking about unique contributing 100 and then 2 per other, but that just is for your score, and then the percent is a multiplier off of that. Because all I did was throw down, empty out, my wall mounts and other items. Like, I just would put the same thing down until I got hit 0 in Coruscant. Whereas in Tatooine, I had individually, basically in Tatooine it's guaranteed I have at least one of everything I possibly can in there.
Yep.
Except for,
nothing to do with it. Nothing to do.
Identical scores.
Yes. So just to explain how it works for everyone, the prestige score for your personal prestige is based on all the decos that you have in your collection overall. And you just get the points per unique item in your prestige or your collection. Or do you get extra points per item? Like multiple chairs each contribute.
Right, it's 100 for the first, and then 2 for each additional.
Right. Wow. And then the actual prestige per individual stronghold is completion percentage multiplied by the overall deco prestige number. That's it. It doesn't matter what you drop. As Red was saying, you can plaster the walls with posters, and you will still get exactly the same number as if they're all independently placed.
Yeah, no more complex than that at all. Which is, it's like, I was at least giving some credit that if you had more unique items and were putting them individually down, then maybe you would inflate your prestige score that way, and then at least it's not a pack rat's paradise when you're at the top of the prestige board, but that's not the case. Straight up, all. It's just the more you've got, the higher your prestige score for that stronghold. So
decorate the way you like. So,
which I know that we're going to mention it later, that this is supposed to be a dynamically changing strongholds and whatnot, and they're going to be working on it. But I do hope that they find some other solution that those prestige scores actually indicate something, not just you've unlocked a lot.
But then again, the personal prestige score is only used in the public listing. Nothing else. But given that fact, yeah, you're right. It should reflect something.
Right, especially since that's the only way for anybody to discover your stronghold without you personally giving them a key, if you want to be discovered. So.
Yeah, why do people list their stronghold when it's just thrown with stuff? Does it automatically do it? I feel like everyone
not.
that I go visit that's at the top of the list, it's just people who have filled it up with posters. Like I always try to take a tour and see what these people come up with because I want to get some ideas. And everyone at the top of the list is just people who have thrown posters on the wall.
Right.
And I don't know, don't you have to check if you want it to be
Yes.
public or not? So
It
these
is an
people are like,
explicit
yeah, come
choice.
check out my.
It's an explicit choice, so these
It's
people
opt-in.
are just wanting attention,
Yeah.
their name, who knows.
Or achievements.
That's frustrating.
The more
I'll
people
go
you
through
can
like
get into your stronghold, you get different achievements for it, and you
That's
need to
true.
get 50.
Wow.
that's
So
true.
unless you can get 50 friends, you got to find some way. And I've noticed,
never
like, as soon as I put mine up, I
People go
immediately
in.
had like 3 or 4 people showing up.
Hmm.
So,
I've never seen other people in them. I'll tour the ones at the top of the list, and I'm always the only one in it. I don't know if it's
Okay.
phase or I don't know why, but
but anyway, that was my week. Pretty abbreviated.
All right, Tio, how about your week?
Let's talk about rating. Not our most successful week ever. We had something wrong with our group. I think we were one short due to various people being away. And Kayun from our guild joined us. And all we did, and we were focused very much on Conquest last week. So we did story mode Dread Palace via the group finder just to get the completion and complete the weekly. Because last week you got, I think it was 2,000 points per completed weekly or 1,000, whatever. And after we did Dread Palace, just to get the weekly done, we didn't even finish it. We did story mode Dread Fortress and then story mode Tomorrow's Courtyard again, just to get the weeklies done, so we all got the points. So, and then on our second day, again, we didn't quite have the full group. So what we decided to do was just focus on things to get us conquest points, such as doing our daily tactical, daily 55 and daily 50, all of which were getting like 2,000 conquest points per, as long as you were eligible for the daily reward, blah, blah. So we started off with the tactical, and then the server went down. We're all on the Harbinger. It just disappeared for all of us, and I think it was a good 45 minutes, an hour that we just hung around chatting, waiting for it to come up. It did finally come up. We then went back to our objectives, and that was the session. We will talk more about the Harbinger in the news, as there have been developments on that front. But the Harbinger did actually stay stable beyond that. And Utini Knights, which is what we pretty much focused on. I also was just doing whatever I could to earn conquest points. We all felt the pressure. We started off, we were around 8th place. We dropped to 9th place. We had invaded Republic side Balmora, as I talked about last week. But we stayed on the leaderboard. I don't think we ever actually got off it. But then towards the end of the week, with more and more guys online, we pushed up and up, and we ended up in 4th place. So we didn't win. But yeah, we earned Utini Knights 4.3 million conquest points. The winner was a guild called What Happens in Denova with 8.5 million, so who knows what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking
Were
at
there
the
any
other
bugs this week? You know, like last week that they had to fix or something?
Yes, there was, and actually quite a nasty one. That was for that week, the week we won. So we'll talk about that as well in the news.
Okay.
Yeah. It has been called an exploit, but it wasn't, though. The way some people using it becomes borderline. But anyway, just wanted to shout out to our guild. Firstly, thank you guys for an amazing effort. We had so many people contributing. We had 65 characters across however many player accounts actually achieve over 35,000 conquest points, which was nice.
Wow.
Dread. Now, we mentioned him last week as achieving some crazy amount. This week, he said his personal goal was 500,000 conquest points. He did achieve that over 3 different characters. So, well done, mate. Now, Chong was another big achiever. He, over 4 characters, he's really been focused and was responsible for the changes to the flagship he reorged. He had the idea of putting all the utility stuff in the room off the side. So when you first zone in off to the left there, that room, he put all organised things there.
Very nice.
So, yeah. Anyway, Chong, across 4 characters, got 248,000 conquest points. Bill, he did over 5 characters. He got nearly 200,000. Ari, about 143,000 over a couple of characters. Now, me personally, I did 250,000 over 4 different characters. So those are sort of the big numbers in the guild. But everyone contributed. We even had Force Chuckle, our old friend Force Chuckle. He was active as well, got 118,000 on one character. So well done. Yeah, and as part of all this, we've been bringing more and more characters into the guild. We've been dancing closer to the 500 gap of having to purge characters who haven't been played in a long time. So if you do have an alt that is suddenly no longer in the guild, that's why. I'm trying to be careful. If it's someone I know is an alt of someone who plays, I've tried to leave them in. But yeah, anyone who gets kicked out, just ask me and I'll bring you back in. And I already mentioned the reorg to the flagship. It's really coming together nicely. And we're now kind of focused on what to do next in terms of getting the dark projects that we need to, well, dark project encryptions and the frameworks necessary to actually open up more parts of the flagship. And really you have to take down commanders if you want to speed that process up. We're going to do the crew deck to start with, which is why I've asked everyone when they get the guild rewards to get logistical encryptions. You need 50 of those for a logistical framework. We need 4 frameworks to open up the first room in the crew deck, though it's only 2 frameworks for the ones after that. I'm not even worrying about the credits at this point. The encryptions are the hard things to get. So
Now,
Wow.
for the reorg of the ship, were you certain to put the astromechs over by the escape pods? Because Max the Grey says that's where they belong.
unless you're recording a podcast, that really shouldn't be necessary, but that's not a bad idea. We can drop 1 or 2 just for the hell of it. So aside from that in my week, it really has just been doing dailies, doing flashpoints, whatever we could do to earn conquest points, basically. As I mentioned earlier, I did not play Galactic Starfighter, even though I should have. It was earning a ton of points. I just couldn't bring myself to. But kept busy nonetheless. And so glad and so proud of the Utini Knights for actually getting on the leaderboard and getting 4th. That was fantastic. Anyway, that was my week. Over to you, Chill.
All right, excellent. All right, first shout out to the chat room. We've got Bill, Dirty Spoons is here, Descartes, HK Chubbs is here, Max the Grey, Nepthan, Pez is here, Beware 2, Karanome Kesk, Alien D, Palais, Rikuri, and Storm JP. So hi everyone, and as I think most people know, I was actually out of town over the weekend, so other than the operation days, I had kind of little playtime, well, no playtime till I got back. Managed to get to level 30 on my Sentinel via PvP, some rail missions in space, all that good stuff. And a quick thanks to everyone who sent me some nice birthday tweets over the weekend, so I appreciate that. And yeah, so had a nice weekend out in the woods, more or less, and now I'm back and looking forward to getting back in the game. So that will bring us straight to the tip of the week. And we have 2 of them. First, from Billy Ando of the Shadowlands. He writes, for companion story missions, and how to get them when they are all on crew skill missions without canceling them. If your companions are out on a crew skill mission, if you go to your ship and hit N, your companions will show up and you can talk to them whatever story mission they have.
I've never tried that.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, I haven't tried that either. That's clever, though.
Next time I'm leveling, I'll give it a go. Actually, I've probably got some companion stories I haven't actually finished on some characters. Anyway, our second tip is from Mariachi. Looking to make a few cartel coins and have lots of free time? By starting a new character and legacy on a new server, you'll be able to grind out a few extra cartel coins. For example, by completing the starter planet story for each class, you'll get 20 cartel coins, and since you've made it that far, make sure you run through Black Talon and Essolus and beat each boss for another 20 cartel coins. If you were lucky enough to have a high-level friend on the new server, then you could speed these through submissions and farm yourself more cartel coins. Even still, I only recommend this for those that are really desperate for cartel coins. I know people have done this similar things like this in Lotro, which is another free-to-play game where it has a similar system where earning their equivalent of achievements will actually grant their in-game currency as well, but you create a brand new character, just do all this stuff, and then delete it.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, with SWOTOR, that is limited because there's only so many servers, and it is once per legacy. So once you've done it, it's done. The legacy persists regardless. But yeah, maybe you should just spend some money.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be a screenshot on Reddit pretty soon. Somebody who's doing it right now.
Probably. Mm-hmm.
All right. By random allotment, the winner is Mariachi. So congratulations, Mariachi. You're the winner of an M8R3 code, courtesy of Bioware, and a new OotiniCast provided Cartel Market Pack from the latest shipment. And if you would like a chance to win the same, please send your tips to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Wednesday. And that will bring us to the Holo feed. Tio?
All right. I've already talked a little bit about the woes of the Harbinger. So we had the first crash that was on Friday night US time during our second day of raiding.
Right during our raid, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Luckily, we'd only just started that tactical. If we'd just been right at the end in a crash, that would have really been annoying. And now it's just moderately annoying. But I'm sure other people were in the middle of stuff, but anyway.
Yeah.
So they had scheduled a restart for just before regular maintenance on Tuesday, but they cancelled it. Now, we thought this was all to hopefully address the changes because the Harbinger, it hadn't crashed, but there was a lot of lag in certain things, particularly when you're using your legacy storage or any kind or the GTN or whatever. There's just a certain amount of latency, which means that something was blocking somewhere. We don't know what the cause of all this is, and they're probably not going to tell us. But the guess is that it's load related, obviously, because there's a lot of active players, but also they probably added in something with 2.9, the strongholds themselves, maybe, or the legacy storage, maybe. Again, who knows? But anyway, this last night, Wednesday, middle of the night US time, well, actually Tuesday, middle of the night, they had a second crash. This was when the Utini Templars were doing their thing, and it just went down. It did eventually come up. They restarted the server, but then it looks like early this morning, Wednesday morning US time, it crashed again, and it didn't come back this time. So, yeah, it is finally back up. It came up not too long ago, and we just had a couple of posts about it. Apparently, some people experienced a rollback after the downtime. Now, what this effectively means is that what you've actually achieved up to a certain point, beyond that, was lost. Like you were doing stuff, the server went down, server comes up. It's as if a bunch of this stuff you'd done hadn't occurred.
Oh, boy.
Which
Okay.
all implies that there's some sort of feeding changes back to the back-end database, which is where it's all made persistent. Something went wrong, and it was lost. Yeah. So, and
how did this
after
impact conquest points? Any idea?
Of course it would. Depending on exactly what it was rolled back, but yeah. So if you completed a mission, that contributed something. It was as if it never happened.
Right.
Typically.
I'll get to find out whether my character is still level 30.
Indeed. It should only be a small gap of time between when the crash occurred and just back a bit, but who knows.
Okay.
And your mileage may vary. And when it was brought up today, there may be another small rollback on stuff. And anyway, that is the exact reason, according to BioWare, that the Harbinger came down. They're working to bring it back up, but as soon as they noticed that these rollbacks were happening, that's why they brought it down. And they had to do it quickly, because otherwise people were going to keep on doing stuff and it was all being lost. So who knows what happened right then.
Oh, boy.
So this it's not dealing with something very well. The Harbinger is clearly the most populated server, being the only West Coast PvE server. But that's not enough to explain it. People were seeing login queues, but the server was not full enough to warrant that. So all these connectivity issues, everything that we're seeing, it's all sort of revolving around the same load-related something. Now, they have announced another maintenance for deploying patch 2.9D that will be occurring Thursday morning, basically, US time.
Okay.
And so even though the Harbinger is back up, they have explicitly said they have identified the issue that was causing the problem. For all we know, it could be hardware related in their data center somewhere. Some component could have just been misbehaving. Who knows?
Right.
And they are going to just keep monitoring stuff. And if things go bad, that is, if it looks like rollbacks are going to happen again, they will just drop the server, just take it down without warning, so that won't happen. So it's all a bit rough, but maybe after the patch, things will be good again. But yeah, poor Harbinger. Anyway.
It's kind of a pain in the booty that all the other West Coast servers ended up having to go down too. Which is the weirdest part to me. I mean, Bastion certainly doesn't have the population the Harbinger does, just because we don't have as many Care Bears around.
But all the servers are all in the same West Coast data center, and if there's any shared element to that, such as an array of database, a cluster of database servers, whatever, you take one thing down, it takes it all down in that data center. Hence, all the West Coast went down. So
Gotcha.
Even though you're right, the Bastion has been completely unaffected by any of this. Yeah. You're just...
It sounds like they just kept digging and finding problems, because they didn't take the Bastion down at the same time, and it wasn't until after they'd taken both Behringer and Harbinger down that they finally took Bastion. So clearly it had to be something that was tied to all of them. It just seems like they might not have identified that initially.
Or it was just, yeah, well, maybe. Who knows? Alright, so that's that. Hopefully 2.9D will make everything better. Now, speaking of patches, we did have one last week. This was towards the end of the week. I think it was Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. To deploy patch 2.9C. Now, what they changed is that the various Flashpoint objectives had been repeatable. Now, we talked about this in last week's show, but since I knew about this patch, I actually edited the references to the repeatable stuff out so people weren't getting misinformation. But the various Flashpoints, the various objectives about completing the Essalus, Black Talon, the Battle of Ilum, and the False Imp, those were all repeatable. So completing them, story mode or hard mode, would grant you, depending on where you invaded, 2,000 conquest points, and taking down the bonus boss in those various would also grant you, in hard mode only, would also grant you 2,000 conquest points. Now, what this 2.9C changed was to make those non-repeatable, meaning you could do them once across your legacy, earn the conquest points, and that was it for the week. Prior to 2.9C, you could just do that over and over and over and over again, and that's what we were doing.
Right.
It wasn't an exploit, because that's we just read through the objectives, and that's how you did it.
The objective vocabulary was explicit that it's repeatable.
Yes.
Did they change the vocabulary too?
Not really.
Okay.
Because all they had to do was change it to be non-repeatable, and it was that simple.
Right, so clearly it was working as intended, but I bet they didn't expect people to do the things that they did.
Presumably. Alright, so what they said was, it is a bug, they said. Flashpoint conquest objectives are intended to be one-time only, not infinitely repeatable. The only Flashpoint objectives that can be repeated are the Group Finder ones, and those can only be done when you have the daily mission for the Group Finder available. Of course, you could argue this isn't really fair, because the Warzone guys can just keep doing war zones over and over again, so why not have an equivalent for flashpoints with a suitably small amount of conquest points per flashpoint? Don't know, but that's apparently not what they intended.
Now that you bring it up, actually, I think there's a good way that they could do it. I did see somebody on Twitter mention that there was a way of exploiting the way that they'd implemented it because you only needed to complete the quest objective, which was taking down the final boss. So one person could get to the end and then summon a bunch of their buddies to come finish it without actually doing the work.
Yeah,
But if they made the repeatable nature, the fact that you have to be present as an individual to take every single one of the bosses down, that seems just as viable as spamming war zones.
yeah.
And of course, I would totally say gate it so that the story modes can't be repeatable. Because come on, Essalus, yeah, of course, every one of us could solo in there and just auto attack, you know, which I was doing anyway, just because I also wanted the decorations out of there, and you can get the decorations from story modes. So
Apparently, well, on OotiniCast, the latest episode, they did talk about this at length, and it was considered. People were describing it as an exploit, where a stealther would go into, I think it's Battle of Ilum. We can pretty much go through all the way to the end, and then just add people to the group. They just did the final fights and done. 2,000 conquest points for the 4 players, and stealthers could just keep doing this. Players could just switch from group to group because there is no hard mode lockout. You can just keep doing hard modes over and over again. Yeah, so whatever.
I guess that kind of behavior. I mean, I would, if you want to be really strict about vocabulary and definitions, I'd say it might not be an actual exploit, but that kind of behavior definitely is exploitative of a system that is clearly not working the way the developers intended it.
Speaking of which, there's another nasty exploit involving Galactic Starfighter that I'm not going to describe, but it was extremely effective from what I'm told, and that I hope they fix that one. But like I said, I'm not going to talk about it, but that was terrible.
Well, this is a brand new system, and probably every single week, depending on the different various objectives that we have, they're going to need to revisit and adjust until everything works well.
And there's no way people can keep it up. I mean, it sounds awful. I did Essalus one time, and I couldn't bring myself to do it more. People were just grinding that flashpoint over and over all week long. Just sounds horrible.
It was horrible. I was so glad they fixed this, but we were just doing what we thought what we were told we could do, and it was very clear. So I'm so glad they fixed that because it was mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Now we do have a post that was posted after 2.9c. Just to clarify, this is from lead designer Jesse Sky. He says conquest events are intended to provide a set of rotating objectives that incentivize a variety of activities from week to week, including both PvP and PvE, but not necessarily a strict balance between the two. Some events will lean more heavily towards specific activities, and others will be more generalized. The intention is to provide a set of high point value, non-repeatable objectives that focus on some specific thematic goals, such as completing certain flashpoints, while giving highly repeatable activities such as war zones and crafting a broader meaning in the war. As this is a new system, we're still working out how to create the right balance for the objectives. The purpose is to create a sense of change and opportunity each week, so that the galaxy's conflicts feel diverse and interesting. If you favor specific types of activities, you will probably want to gravitate towards invading worlds where those activities receive invasion bonuses in order to maximize your conquest point gain. Generally speaking, however, players who enjoy a variety of activities will get the most out of the system. But he goes on to say they're still tweaking this stuff, and they're going to update things in 2.10, apparently, put more emphasis on wins for Warzone objectives, and over time may raise the value of other activities such as flashpoints, just to keep things balanced. Because as we know at the moment, particularly for PvP, is spamming war zones, if you get the bonus, is a really, really quick way to build up points.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that this is. I mean, we talked about it last week. This looks like their intention. Exactly what he said. Naturally, this is something you couldn't even have tested on the server, just by virtue of the fact that there are how many weeks worth of various goals, and that is constantly fluctuating, and a lot of people aren't going to be reporting the way that they can exploit it until it goes live. It'll work its way out, though.
Yeah. And this week, it's called the Trade Emporium. Is a particular invasion setup. The available planets are Voss, McKeb, and CZ198. As Red mentioned, the bonuses of CZ198 are strange, but the other two are fairly typical. We chose to invade Voss, which gives the crafting bonus and... the hell is it? What's the other bonus? Oh, whatever. Actually, I wrote it down. One sec. That gives
There's some
bonuses
hero
for...
bonuses there, right?
It gives bonuses for crafting, and everywhere gets bonuses for war supplies. So that was kind of... It seemed like a good idea at the time, because we got some heavy-duty crafters. It's not working out so well. We were on the leaderboards, but who knows where we are now, given the Uppinger's been down for so long.
Actually, the one advantage I did notice for both McKeb and Voss that don't exist for CZ198 is the killing the droids and guards for the cities.
Indeed.
There
And
isn't anything like that for CZ198, so there's no conquest points.
also, McKeb also have heroics, and you get bonuses for doing the heroics, and also you get a ton of points for taking down the Nightmare Pilgrim world boss on boss. It's going to be heavily...
Cool.
Yeah, but that is non-repeatable, so you can just do it once across your legacy. So we're intending to do that sort of later in the week when everyone else has already got their points from him. So, yeah. I'm not sure how we'll do this week, given it really is crafting heavy. While we do have some crafters, we haven't got that many people who are focused on it. We'll try. We did the Voss dailies are a lot more time consuming. There's only 4 of them. Bill suggests that you do pick up the weekly from the Cantina. That doesn't contribute conquest points on the Cantina on Voss, but it does give you rep. My rep with the Voss was 0 when I started, so I've done a couple of rounds on 2 different characters so far. Yeah, time consuming. Took us with a group of 3 or 4, maybe an hour to get through them all. 45 minutes to an hour.
So
It's
the
just
nice
slow.
thing, the nice thing is, of course, it's going to give some people an opportunity to start working on rep that they may not have before. But the other thing is, there's titles involved in beating every single one of the planetary heroics on every planet. So as you're going through all of these different conquest events, doing these heroics will actually work you towards it. And some of the heroics you can't do until you've done a lot of the heroics. Actually, you can't do until you've done the bonus planetary quest line.
Right.
So it's actually getting people into doing content they may have never done before, and certainly might not have done on the character that they play now.
Right.
So.
And I've certainly seen a ton of achievements popping up as I've been doing this. So, wonderful. Also worth mentioning, the personal objective for this week is only 25,000, not 35. So it's that much easier to get to.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're adjusting it based on like what is available for bonuses and so on. It sounds like.
It
Looks like it.
It will change week to week.
Because all the planets have a lot less this week, right?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah, that Nightmare Pilgrim's worth 6K though alone.
Yep.
So big boost.
Yes, indeed. All right, so that's this week. We'll see how we go. It would be nice to expand our capital ship, but we'll see. A few other stories, circular signs for classes. There was just a thread on the forums. These signs are like the ones outside the training areas on the fleet, with your class symbol on them. They were seen on live streams, but apparently the answer from BioWare is these signs do come from class achievements. However, they are currently not hooked up, which is why you haven't actually unlocked them yet. So they're going to get that fix, but they don't know when. So sometime in the future. So if you're after one of those class signs, they do exist. They just aren't available yet.
I wonder if it's going to be Chapter 1 or 3, or...
Who knows?
Because there's achievements for every chapter,
Yep.
and then there's even achievements for doing all of a single faction in every chapter, and each chapter along the way. So there's a lot of achievement locations where they could put those signs onto.
Next story is the PTS was taken down on Thursday, 28 August, from Game Update 2.10. They've done all the testing they want to do, and it will go live. 2.10 will go live on as scheduled, 9th of September. which is this coming Tuesday, in fact.
Wow.
So all those class changes we're going to talk about in our discussion today with Pez. It's all going to go live. As we sort of talked about last week, we haven't seen any sign of that next tactical flashpoint. Hang on. One sec. Sorry, just had to do a bit of moderation. What was I saying? As we talked about last week, the new tactical that will be coming with 2.10 didn't appear on the PTS, and they talked about this in their developer livestream last week. They said this is intended. They don't want to give anything away. No spoilers. People are going to experience the depths of Manan, basically, in between, and they're going to see this fresh. So let's hope it got enough testing through their own internal testing. So it's going to be a complete surprise for all of us. So as soon as 2.10 comes down, I guess we'll see it. Also worth noting that the following Tuesday, which is 16th September, is preferred players get access to Galactic Strongholds. And then the official launch of Galactic Strongholds is Tuesday, 14 October. So once 2.10 goes live, we don't actually expect any new content until the XPAC. So in terms of when we start finding about what is in the expansion, my thought is that it'll be sometime after Game Update 2.10. And they're just going to start, I'm sure they've got a plan, they're going to just start dropping bits and pieces here and there, all leading up, building that hype, or the XPAC, which will probably launch sometime in December.
Right.
I'd say smart money would probably be the game's anniversary, which would be mid-ish toward late-ish December, but who knows, they may get it out sooner. But this is a long time without any new content.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, just a couple more things. Season theming, something they talked about for ranked PvP rewards. Bottom line is they've talked about it. They're going to do it in Season 3 with the titles, having some sort of theme for the title, and they may actually reflect that in the actual rewards themselves post Season 3. But for now, in Season 3, if you're into ranked PvP, it will just be the titles. And he says, I think this was Alex Modney, we are currently having a battle royale internally over which of the names we like best, but what would you all like to see? Something illustrious or something ferocious? Pez, if you had to choose being PvPer, would you like to be illustrious or ferocious?
It's got to be ferocious, I think. I'm kind of surprised that they don't already have
Absolutely.
this. I mean, you've got a Brone, Brutalizer, Conqueror. I feel like it just goes with it. I don't know why they haven't done it yet. Might as well. So,
Yeah, great.
except I don't want a Brone title. I don't need that. But
Indeed.
Brutalizer's cool.
I agree. So anyway, that's what's happening with those rewards. Again, let's hope they actually let us know what they are prior to Season 3 starting. Speaking of which, I guess we think it's going to start with 2.10 or soon thereafter. I guess that's one more thing that will be in between 2.10 and the XPAC.
Right.
Last story. We did indeed have the Community Cantina in Seattle in conjunction with PAX Prime, on Sunday evening, 31st of August. Now, we had two people attending on behalf of OotiniCast. They chose to represent us while they were there, as well as their own interests. That was Ben B of the Despair Guild on the Harbinger, and our own Caligari from Utini Knights, also on the Harbinger. So Ben had some grand plans to stream the actual Q&A, but unfortunately that didn't work out due to severe bandwidth limitations. So both he and Caligari took some video of the Q&A session, which Caligari, who happens to kind of do this thing in real life, edited together in a rather nice presentation that is posted on our YouTube channel. And we also have, thanks to Ben, the assets from the flash drive that was given to all attendees, and I put that into a post on OotiniCast.com, so you can actually see the images. There are some rather boring pictures of decorations, as you would kind of expect, but, well, depending on how you feel about decos. But the best part of it was a whole ton of pictures of the new Flashpoint, which will be set on Rakata Prime. Yeah, so there'd already been hints about this. They're not hiding it. Rakata Prime. This planet was actually visited in KOTOR. Once you actually look at the pictures, you actually do remember where it was. Though I don't think they actually called it Rakata Prime. I think it was just the unnamed planet or something along those lines from the original KOTOR. So, yeah, it's beautiful. As various people have said, they really should have if they're going to put a stronghold location anywhere, this would be another place, at least based on these screenshots.
I mean, everybody thought Manan was phenomenal. These photos look like they're going even one step further with Rakata Prime. It's great.
Yes.
I do think a Manon stronghold would be fun, especially if it had like underwater sections.
Yeah, yes indeed.
Yeah.
That would
Just
be
all
fantastic.
underwater.
Windows.
Yeah, they already put rain on the windows. Do the same thing as the Capital Worlds, but just put fish swimming by.
Why not? Why not? So, now they did have the usual Q&A. Now, as I said, the video is on our site and on YouTube. But just quickly summarizing some of the questions that were asked, and we will have a full post writing this up that Caligari is working on, so that'll be in more detail. New operations, they asked Jesse Sky, and he said he is working on operations. He'd better be, and no doubt that will be in the X-Pack. They didn't go into detail. For guys who are working on Nightmare Progression, it was asked, it's hard for them to get conquest points. And that would be absolutely true, because if you're just doing an operation where you're just trying to get through content, you're not actually achieving any completions as far as conquest points go, typically. And so what they're saying is they're changing objectives week to week, which we already talked about, and they are evolving the conquest objectives based on feedback. So it will change. So even if it's kinds of not really suitable for you right now, it will change and hopefully get a lot better. Also was asked, smaller, tight-knit guilds can't really compete against the mega guilds.
Right.
And Utini Knights is hardly a mega guild, and we were struggling against those guys who are just producing crazy amounts of conquest points, which either means they have a lot of players or they're exploiting. So let's be generous and assume they just have a lot of players. And they said they're aware of the issue. So maybe there is a way, diminishing returns the more players you have or something, or only the top X players in a guild, their points actually contributed towards the leaderboard total.
Could be weird. Yeah,
I don't know. Just spitballing. It could be anything, really.
But
they want to do something.
I don't understand what the problem is, really. I feel like it's built for big guilds. I mean, if you have a small guild, you made a choice to play with just your close friends. And, I mean, conquering planets is not going to be on your agenda for 8 people. So
yeah, it's almost lore breaking. Oh yeah, these 4 guys got #1 on the planet.
It's just not meant for you, really. I don't know why we have to kind of now we're going to have a bolster. That's what we're going to end up with.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Do you want a bolster?
Yeah.
Everybody hates bolster as it stands.
Thinking it through, you're right. You're right. But then again, they do want the whole conquest thing to be in some way meaningful. Though in a way it is, because anyone who can personally get 35k or more will get those personal rewards. All you're missing out on is the stuff that will basically expand your flagship, in essence.
You know, this will naturally kind of take care of itself anyway, because eventually every guild is going to have taken every planet, and you know the mega guilds anyway, and those guilds will have a certain percentage of them that start to lose interest in competing on that level. Not to mention, all you need to do is get in the top 10 to get your guild contribution. You might not get it every single week, but to get your guild reward. And also, you were noting that it's not even really about being on the top 10 to get the materials that you really need to get the guild ship expanded and everything. That's about taking down commanders. Which, yeah, I mean, there are ways to exploit that, but it's not like it's infinitely exploitable throughout the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
It might be slower for smaller guilds, but they can get the rewards they want from
Yes.
conquest. Aside from a few things that, and I think Pez is right. At some point, you have to understand that there are things that are designed for the big guilds, and your little guild won't do it if you choose to stick with them.
Yep. All right. Other things, ranked PvP to make it better in terms of, we all know cross-server queues would be fantastic. They have talked about the tournament server, having a separate server that all the ranked players can somehow play on. Who knows? Apparently it's been an option that's come up in meetings. They're thinking of something.
Actually, this is, I think, last time they hadn't referred to it explicitly as a tournament server. They had mentioned it as the ranked PvP server, which I thought was a horrible idea, but a tournament server is exactly what I was thinking. Like, take the top 10 or 20 from every server, put them onto a tournament server, and give them 2 weeks to duke it out and see who's on top at the end.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the initial problem, though, but maybe.
No, but it does at least, like for the top 3 of each class, it makes that a more meaningful and legitimate reward.
Yeah, so I can get my Care Bear crew together, and we can come fight you guys on the Bastion.
Exactly.
But what this says to me is that they really have no solution, and they have no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
that isn't cross-server. Yeah, yes, you're right, basically. Right, legacy-wide ignore. So why don't we have that? Because it would be fantastic. Essentially, it's a privacy issue because it indirectly reveals which characters belong to the same account, in essence.
And actually, I had explicitly requested this question be asked by one of the people I knew was going. The reason I wanted this addressed is because I actually have some friends in real life that have found stalkers who explicitly keep making new characters because their character gets put on ignore, and they have literally been harassing and physically threatening my friend for over a year and a half, to the extent that the authorities have been called and they're building case against this guy. But BioWare has really not given any kind of control to us as individuals, especially a woman being threatened this way is not a comfortable thing, and she's strong enough to deal with it, or have to put up with it because she has no choice. But I could see a lot of people, if someone like this slime latches onto them, they're just going to leave the game. And rightfully so. I mean, I'm actually impressed that she's stuck around, because the stuff she's had to put up with, I've never had to face, and I probably wouldn't put up with it. Just like I'm instant ignore on a lot of people, if this were to last, 6 months, let alone a year and a half, I'd have quit the game, taken my money, and gone somewhere else. So it's something I think I understand. Oh, yeah, it reveals every character that's on that account. Well, that's kind of the point. It also protects the players that are being harassed by certain individuals. If BioWare is not going to do something else about it, and they haven't for a year and a half in this case.
Right.
You might have to do a follow-up in Vegas then.
Yeah.
The answer to that is they can't implement the legacy-wide ignore because of the privacy issue. But in cases of harassment, that player should be banned who's actually doing the harassing. End of story.
Right.
And BioWare, there was actually a really interesting article written by Damien Schubert just recently about how game companies actually do think about how they deal with griefing behavior, and this harassment is a kind of griefing, that the value of that person's subscription, the person who's doing the harassing, versus how much money they're losing as a result of their behavior. If you trade that up, it's just not worth keeping the griefer around. You ban them. You don't need their money. You just get rid of them. That is the way they think about it. And so it's weird that a case of active harassment where you actually have evidence of the behavior still exists. That player should simply be banned.
Yeah,
End of story.
Well, and that makes sense. That conclusion makes a ton of sense, because you've seen from a lot of games recently all these social studies that they've done, trolling behavior, like just telling somebody, hey, be nice to your teammates. People that are nice to their teammates as opposed to trolling their own teammates win something like 80% more often. I mean, bad behavior infects the population. Trollish behavior causes people to play poorly, ruins the game for other people. So yeah, you want to There's no
You
reason
don't-
not to get rid of it because you want your players enjoying the game.
Yeah, and you don't need the money from those people because they will cause a lot more people to leave just by
Right.
the way. Their
One
way
person
of playing
will
the game.
make 5 quit.
Yes, so you don't need them. You get rid of them.
Have they refused to ban the player that was causing this problem, Red? That
Yeah,
was
like I said, I
harassing
know
them?
of this one specific case where this player has been in the game since it launched, and this persistent, I mean, and we're talking really vile sexual language along with physical threats, and it's been
Right.
persistent for over a year and a
And
half.
they just have not banned him. Okay.
No.
All right. Okay, random mount button. They're actually working on it. No promises when, but
That's
it'll come.
cool that they're actually working on it, though.
So
Yeah.
basically,
I want that bad.
Remember that
press a
came up
button
in
and some random something speeder from mount from your collection will just pop up.
yeah, they came up in the Austin interview too.
Right. Now we had some extra ones which Callie will write up in detail.
But weren't on the video.
Yes. For example, will they be raising that 25 NPC limit in our strongholds in terms of being able to place them? And the summary is yes, but the problem is that, like companions, etc., actually the way that they're placed into the stronghold uses as much resources as if they were actual with you, as in all of their bits and pieces. So what they're going to do is create a dumbed down version of the companions that really is just the shell of it with the appearance, but without all the abilities and everything else, because really you don't need it if you're using it as a deco in your stronghold. So they're going to try and do that. And if they can do that, the resources that your various companions, etc., use will be severely reduced, and thus you can have more of them without actually affecting the load. So that's a good answer. And animal mounts and stuff affect things. And another question was, why do animal mounts count the NPC limit but not standard vehicle mounts? It's because the vehicle mounts only have effect animations running, such as exhaust. They don't have idle animations, such as, just like your companions when they're just standing around doing just wild, random things. They just take more effort to run. So they just need dumbed down versions again. So they can not drain resources from the server, so you'll be able to have more than 25. Training dummies will come once they actually get them worked out. Why only 4 keys allowed in the keyring? They will look at increasing the number of keys after they resolve performance issues addressed above, all the other stuff we just talked about with mounts, and know more about what the service can handle. So if the Harbinger's got any indication as if that's related to this at all, then maybe these numbers aren't going to change too much. Let's hope there was something completely unrelated. It probably wasn't.
That also came up during the Austin interview, so where they were explicitly saying they limited it just because if they expand the number of strongholds, they don't know necessarily that the servers can handle it.
Yeah. In terms of further functionality, they're really testing the waters they're just monitoring stuff since 2.9 came out, and they will sort of tweak things up and change things once they know more. Alright, and the rest of the things you'll find in Callie's post. Red, you had a couple of other questions from Riss.
Yeah, Riss of the Last Dark Reapers on the Bastion. He also got to go and apparently talked with Jesse Sky. That's the developer's name, right?
Yep.
And got some interesting responses, such as I guess Jesse is looking into making the area where the Battle Masters are grant conquest points if you kill players that have tagged the Battle Master. Basically, defending points, open world PvP defensive points that contribute to your conquest for your guild. Apparently, he said he wanted to do this from the very start and is going to continue pursuing some way to have it implemented. I'm sure there's some interesting coding involved with this person has tagged and is engaged with this battle master, therefore if you're on the opposing faction and kill him, then you get some kind of reward for it. But I thought it was pretty compelling that he really liked the idea, is trying to make it work, and it's not. And since we know that this is still an evolving system within the game, I look forward to seeing some sort of open world benefits to the PvP side of things, especially since they've already implemented it on the PvE servers that you're meant to get flagged anyway when you're doing this. So, he did say, if we love Manon, Conquest, and Strongholds, we will be very excited for what is coming at the end of the year in the next expansion. So no particular information about that.
Oh, wow.
But sounds like there might be a whole bunch of things that tie into what we now have, which makes sense. Maybe with the next 5 levels and whatnot, they can actually kind of incorporate a little more deeply.
Yeah, that would make sense. I could definitely see a new stronghold being tied to whatever new content you do while you're leveling.
That's a good point, yeah. Straight up, there's a planet stronghold unlocked with the expansion.
That would be cool.
They are currently working on new PvP war zones, which is cool to get confirmation. I assume we ought to have assumed as much since they were asking for our ideas and whatnot for new maps. It's about time they confirm, yes, they're actually working on it.
Sure.
New maps and new modes. Also, new modes for GSF are in the talks, as well as trying to find out if AI for GSF is really a possibility.
Wow.
So,
PvE galactic Starfighter. Cool.
Right. Off rails. So it sounds like, and these are much softer comments than they are currently working on.
Yeah.
But they're talking
would
about
be-
it looks like that's the direction they're going. So that's good.
Post X-Pack next year sometime, if they do it at all. That's good news.
I actually submitted to Gaddick Teague for his Unnamed Sorter podcast, Wall of Crazy. What I'd like to see, if it's not simply for the next expansion, if it's not something as simple as cross-server queues for everything, which is something that would help a lot of people. But if it's something that's actually a little bit more along the lines of GSF or Strongholds, if they actually had some sort of fully integrated combat conquest integrated system for GSF and GSH, and where they actually integrate these things into the conquests for a combined experience, i.e., you have decided with your guild that you're going to be assaulting this planet. Now you can use some kind of integrated spider ship experience that somehow influences, say, the orbital flyby that your guild is going to call in for a attack on a guard or whatever, and start kind of integrating all of these things together into a unique whole. I think that would be this is wild crazy, but that would be really cool. That would be another expansion that would blow a lot of people's minds away, tying everything together.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's wild crazy.
Very, very crazy.
I like it though.
Yeah,
I think
it's
yeah,
conceptually good.
They could do other things like with Starfighter, like start some sort of leaderboard with Starfighter for guilds, and the more points you get on that board, maybe you get a bonus on your conquest points because you're sort of controlling the skies, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
All right. Now, let me finish with some community picks. Star Wars: A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller. This is the first book as part of their new canon, whatever you want to call it. This book is set between episodes 3 and 4. It's laying the groundwork for the new Star Wars Rebels animated series.
Makes
You may
sense.
have seen the episode of that posted, or at least an excerpt from it. It's looking a little more child-friendly or child-appealing than even the Clone Wars. So it wasn't quite what I envisaged. I envisaged something a little more adult, but it is an animated series. So
Right. Well, the Clone Wars sort
Oh,
of
well.
developed. It was a little more kid-friendly at first, and sort of became more nuanced.
Yeah, Clone Wars is very kid-friendly early.
Okay. Well, anyway, the book is out, available in hardcover as well as ebook format. We had a Jawa joyride yesterday, led by Kusei, and he says they had another successful ride, Group Finder, Story Mode, Scum and Villainy for Conquest Points, and Ultimate Comms. So yeah, that's good. That's still ongoing, so that's every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. A quick note from Nikish, who won the Tip of the Week last week. who he's apparently been playing SWTOR since beta and only just figured out the tip that he gave last week. So I guess there are always things you can learn from this game. And his guild is the Shadow Guardians. And I'll just link to a quick shout out to them, and I'll link to his guild's website.
Very nice.
And Werit, someone we've known for a long time from weritsblog.com. He's running a competition that he asked us to publicize, which he calls Show Your Stronghold. The prizes are a 5,500 Cartel coin gift card from Amazon, and he's got 10 Torn Fawn pet codes to give away. 2 ways to participate. 1, create a video of your stronghold for a chance at the 5,500 Cartel coins, and for a chance at the Torn Fawns, you just need to help spread the word about the giveaway. I will link to his post. So that's a great idea. He's also given some tips on how to actually make your own video if you've never happened to have done that before.
Does this mean you're going to get a Torn Fawn code?
No.
I think we still have plenty of those, don't we?
There's a few left in the nest, so every time someone wins the tip of the week, I am giving them an option of a Torn Fawn or an M8. So
very nice.
And lastly, we are still running our Utini lottery. The way it works now is you have to, for both Utini Knights and Utini Range, donate 50k per ticket. You can have up to 5 tickets per character. Multiple characters is okay. And once I get 50 tickets on each side, I will award the Cartel pack reward. At the moment, we're about halfway there for Knights and not as far on Rage. So that's just for our guildmates. Just enter the lottery. All you have to do is donate to the guild bank, and I'll just build up the list of entry tickets until we have enough to draw, and then we'll just rinse them and repeat because we still need the money. Once we do get enough dark projects to actually, once we do get enough frameworks to actually open up the flagship further. And that's the news.
Alrighty, that'll bring out the force feedback where we read out your tweets and emails. And a message to the chat room. If you have any questions to ask, Red will be gathering them now to ask once we're done with the feedback section. We'll start with Gas Guy, who wrote in, I'm happy to submit an updated version of the Codex tracking spreadsheet. This has some of the latest new additions, including from patch 2.9. This version has 44 brand new entries, and I've updated 97 others. Wow, he's on it. As an added bonus, the worksheet also includes some tracking tables for the Bounty Contract Week, Henchmen and Kingpins, and for the MCR 99 droids if you're working the Seeker droid quest. Wow. Codex hunters are also advised to keep an eye on the forums for other updates. Good hunting.
Now, you can always get to his Codex tracking spreadsheet, the latest version, on OotiniCast.com. It's in the sidebar to the right. Or you can just go to OotiniCast.com/codex. That will download the Excel spreadsheet file.
Alrighty. Next one, Kaboom! An Utini Knight on the Harbinger writes in. This is one of 3 1,999 matches I had on the past Tuesday. Wow. Famous is a gunslinger that I'm currently leveling, but I guess most people know me by Kaboom in Utini Knights or Roundup in Utini Rage. I thought it was pretty cool that I was in a match this close, but it was weird to have 3 in one day. The 3 different teams I was with won 2 out of the 3 matches. And Conquest has really jump-started Galactic Starfighters and Warzone Q-Pops, which were at most 2 to 5 minutes wait during prime time. And the funny thing is, I thought I would roll over all the other teams during Conquest, and some matches I did, but it turned out some good matches also happened, like the pick I sent. They say the best thing comes in 3s, like OotiniCast, Beyond the Stars, and the Bad Feeling podcast. ToroCast, damn it, that makes 4. And he has a picture of the one of his 1,999s. Wow.
Indeed.
That's exciting.
Yep.
All right. Chong wrote in. He writes, this is by far the best decoration. And it's an object which lets you click on it and you get credit cases.
Yeah, so this is one of those decos that is for the gathering professions. A slicing lockbox works just the same way, and you can literally slice yourself credits until you get that 4-hour debuff on your character. But yeah, he's right. And
Nice.
in the example he gave, he sliced himself maybe about 3k credits. Though that 15-second cast is very, very long each time you do it.
That's a long way to go for that, yeah. And Chung also wrote in, I had a strange bug in the False Emperor Flashpoint, and it did this for most of the Flashpoint. He has a picture, and it's, yeah, most of the insides are gone. You just see the exterior planetscape.
And it looks like his character is,
like there, but invisible?
yeah, or it's just showing the various effects, but not the character
Yeah.
itself. So I remember that used to happen to with my Jedi Knight. He would just go, his character would disappear. You just see the lightsabers. It was very
Weird.
strange. That was ages ago. They've long since fixed it, though.
Yeah, that's a bizarre one. It looks like you can see the effects. You can't really see even the enemies. It must have been really hard to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the client just gets confused.
I guess so. All right. JB wrote, I request a shout out to @Darksplat for 20 years service in the Royal Australian Navy today. Thanks for your service, Jeremy. Oh, wow.
Well done, mate. 20 years.
Congratulations. That's a long service.
I think Les asked him whether he got a subscriber bonus for long-term subscription. 20 years.
All right. Jason Connell wrote, yes, right click is awkward. I'm definitely on team left click.
As far as which button you click to activate a hook,
In
yeah,
Strongholds, yes.
yeah.
Yep. I'm still
I'm
on.
used to it now, but
Yep. It takes a
left
while.
click would have made, yeah.
It would have been fine to make this the exception. All right. Noadala wrote, Noadala's Kas City apartment, a work in progress.
Now, Nodella sent us a series of images that she took, and I have just uploaded them to Dropbox for our chat room.
Okay.
You'll be able to see them in our in the show post. I'll include them as a gallery for what's been done. But so far, very
Okay.
nice work. I've been continually impressed, as I've said before, just what people are doing with their strongholds. It's
And this is
beautiful
one of
work.
those. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to it then. Let's see. Giant Gina wrote, I have a helpful suggestion on how to approach one's galactic strongholds. I actually have an RP theme running through my legacy, and I apply it to how I decorate each room, specifically bedrooms, each of which reflect the class, alignment, and personality of each character within a legacy faction. I understand that many people are designing rooms that have themes, and this is a good starting strategy. But it actually only brings up a galactic stronghold up to hard mode level. When cranking up the RP level over 9,000, one can begin their jaunt into nightmare galactic strongholds. I will illustrate how this theme works currently in my stronghold on Drummond Goss. On the Bastion, my main character Patchwork is a light side bounty hunter who is temporarily staying in his dark side sister's apartment in Drummond Goss. Her name is Dysfunctional, and she is mean and controlling on top of working diligently for the Empire as a high-ranking secret operative. She couldn't stand the idea of letting Patchwork stay at seedy hotels in Nar Shaddaa as his house is getting built, so she is allowing her peacenik brother to stay with her. Speeders are certainly not allowed in her precious and immaculate garage, however. His speeders are to stay outside in the rain. Nice. Dysfunctional, much to her chagrin, has other guests in her Kos apartment as well. Meowch, a light side Imperial sniper with a gambling addiction. Cleopatra, a dark side marauder with simple and evil tastes. And lastly, Patchwork's other sister, Saberista, the lovely light side assassin. One who Patchwork loves very much and to whom he gives expensive gifts and dotes on. Patchwork and Dysfunctional's rooms are downstairs. Patchwork has the sleeping bag type bedroll to suit his simple taste, and there's an autumnal theme around where he sleeps to remind him of the nature that he so enjoys. Dysfunctional's room has a large computer where she is in frequent contact with the Empire, and because she specializes in the mysterious healing arts, she has colto tanks about her room. She also loves to hop on her GTN so it's placed in her room. Given that this is Dysfunctional's home, the decor of the place is primarily to suit her taste, but her other brothers and sisters are taking over a bit. They have always been allowed to design each of their upstairs rooms exactly as they see fit, as long as they don't get in the way of Dysfunctional's serious business of aiding the Empire. With a love always to Tio and Chill and the rest of the Utini guys, Utini Vice Commandant of Utini Heights, aka Patchwork, aka Dysfunctional, aka Giant Gina. P.S. I'm not normally an RPer, and have only taken this approach with Galactic Strongholds. It should be known that anyone, yes, even those within more hardcore PvE and PvP communities, can have some real fun by trying their hands at Nightmare Galactic Strongholds.
Fantastic. And I'll include the gallery of his images, and he has a ton of them, likewise in our show notes.
Very nice.
Serious RP.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
exactly.
And Gina is this is our old friend Giant Gina, is a serious raider, as in doing nightmare content. So he doesn't muck around, but he's really got into the strongholds. Who would have thought?
All right. And Red, have there been questions to answer at this point?
Oh, nothing's come up.
Okay. In that case, on to the Sarlacc Digest, where we go over the issues for 1,000 years, or until we run out of time. And Tio, go ahead and lead us through some discussion on class changes coming in the next update 2.10.
Well, so we've talked about them at some length previously, but we didn't go into too much detail. Now, this is ahead of the publication of the 2.10 release notes, but we do have the final PTS patch notes and basically the evolution of the class changes as they sort of got here. So Pez, who is something of an expert in pretty much all of this, though we're going to get Red to cover gunslingers and snipers, he's going to add some commentary for each of the classes that are getting some changes. Firstly, a personal favourite of mine is Marauders and Sentinels, though really they have focused on the middle tree, which is combat for JKs, and which is combat for Sentinels and Carnage for Marauders. So, do you want to summarise, Pez?
Yeah, do you ever play combat at all?
I'm Watchman all the way.
Yeah. Chill, what are you leveling your Sentinel right now?
I'm actually going up the middle tree, but I
Alright.
do pick up 5 points in the left-hand tree first, so I'm only part way up.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
done some mucking about on my Marauder, but it's been a while, so I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
I feel like it's a late bloomer class. You really don't get anything good until really high level.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stuff just comes in the 40s, really. But I feel like this change is a pretty obvious one, and I kind of wonder what took so long for them to put this in. The specs completely RNG, and just a few little tweaks really kind of brought the whole spec around now. I think it's in a really good spot.
So what is the ultimate effect of these changes?
Basically, when you have that, there's the gore window. You have precision slash and gore, and it gives you 4.5 seconds to go crazy because it gives you 100% armor. Yeah,
100% armor pen, right?
the problem is the
Yeah,
procs
everyone.
that you get that give you boosted damage are kind of hard to come by, and so you find yourself waiting to use your gore until you get that scream proc,
I see.
and it just never comes and never comes. And now it kind of streamlines it a little bit, and I think it's in a pretty
What
good
causes
spot.
that gore proc?
It's an ability.
Is
you
it the
use-
opportune attack triggering, or is it the Hand of Justice?
You activate your gore,
Right.
if that's
Right.
what you're talking about.
So,
No,
so
You
the-
start the window.
Rock.
right, but you said you're waiting for that gore proc.
Yeah, what causes the proc?
Oh, your Ataro form. The extra damage that comes from your stance or whatever will trigger a super scream, basically. It gives you one of those boosted abilities. You really don't want to use it unless you've got that
Yeah.
proc.
Yeah.
And but you want to couple it with gore to get the most damage out. And so you're sitting there hanging onto your gore, waiting to use it because you don't have that scream proc yet, and it can be kind of frustrating.
So the scream proc happens, and then you pop your scream, and then you pop your gore and go to town for the seconds that it's got because you've got the buffs from it.
Yep. And now you're guaranteed to get that scream proc. So it kind of streamlines it, so it should be there when you need it.
Right.
Yeah. And
I saw the developer comments where some of you have expressed that you believe this to be a boring solution to the problem.
Yeah.
But they like it because it's simple. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I feel like it's obvious. I don't know what were they looking for? Something creative, a redesign of? I think that tree in particular. It's funny how the classes are designed because each tree can almost feel like completely different classes. So many people will play a class and only like one tree, and they don't want to touch the other ones. And it can feel like a completely different class, the way they're designed. And I think combat is it's a fresh take on a burst build. I think it's one of the more cleverly designed trees with the way it's set up, and I think it's in a really good spot now. Basically, I'm kind of nervous though because with the expansion coming out, there's a lot of the classes are starting to round off and really feel complete, and now they're about to just flip the script, and it's gonna be, they're gonna start from scratch again. So.
Well, we don't know that.
That's true.
They could leave it all the same.
That's
maybe.
true. And I don't know how I feel. I'm scared of them changing the trees that I like to play, but it needs variety. We need some change. We need some new stuff. So.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Because there are some people that they found what they like. They've been playing it since launch. It hasn't changed even with 2.0, and they want to play that. And then there's a lot of people who they've played every one of their trees as time has passed, and now they still want to play their character because that's the character they put all the time in, but they want something totally new. So who are they going to respond to?
I wonder. I mean, well, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I don't look for that as my way of enjoying the game, having something completely new. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing and let the new content and new gameplay, like conquests and whatever, be what is added. I don't have the foundation change under us every expansion.
I tend to be that way, especially with each expansion adding new talent points anyway, and then I like to play around with hybrid, and see what I can discover with those changes. But yeah, I've spoken to people personally who they're actually not playing much right now, and they're waiting for the next expansion to come out with the sole hope that they can, like for instance, a Sage, play their Sage but not have to play the exact same Sage they've been playing for the past, well, it'll be 3 years when it happens.
If they really want to change, they could always roll something else.
Exactly. And to Pez's point, I think both the Sentinel and the Gunslinger, or their Imperial Mirrors, is quite remarkable that these are the only two base classes that are 100% DPS. They don't have options for tanks or healers. Mm-hmm. But every tree really is distinct. They are like completely different classes.
Yep.
And it's cool.
Yeah, I think this change really kind of brings the spec together, in my opinion. I feel like it's one of the more complete trees in the game now.
Right.
And it's also one, as Neptune was kind of saying, it's one of those trees that has a really high skill ceiling, and it allows for a great player to really shine with it, which is something I like. So
sure.
I think it's cool. Yeah, it's a good change. It was needed.
All right. Let's move on then to the other pure DPS. Snipers and gunslingers, so they are focusing on the engineering and saboteur trees. So Red, tell us about that.
Okay, so with what we know is going to be coming in 2.10, and actually these changes they made it clear, gunslingers early on, they didn't need to make changes anymore. They needed to tweak the numbers a little bit to find out where they are, but they wrapped that up fairly early. And it's actually even worth noting they followed up afterwards and made it clear that the strategy that they were working with when they made these changes, well, their goal with the sniper and the gunslinger changes in 2.10 was to pull forward as many of the engineering saboteur changes from a future update, which sounds like an expansion to me. Pull as many of those forward as they could in the time that they had allotted. So they brought forward what they could, and then they got pretty happy with it, and then they closed it earlier than some of the other classes that needed more specific attention. There are a lot of other changes that they couldn't pull forward for various reasons, and we'll see those changes in a future update. They think that currently Plasma Grenade, they boosted it. They didn't actually, in these notes, they don't say what the exact percentage increase was. They had originally posted that it was going to be 22%, but that was actually too much, and they backed off on that. But they're happy with where it is. Some people still want it to be increased, but part of the reason that they're happy with where it is because of some of those other changes that will be coming in the future. As for explosive probe and sabotage charge, they increased its effectiveness over on live, keeping in mind that their goal was not to make engineering saboteur an overpowered skill tree, that all snipers, slingers would feel like they were forced to use it in 2.10, but rather that these changes would be a taste for the coming changes to the skill tree.
Right.
And and that it will be improving even further after 2.10, which is cool. Basically, we are now going to get the feel. That's what I get out of this more than anything. They want you to get the feel of what they intend this tree to play like, but that there will be further changes, and they might be increasing in utilization and power in the future when they get everything else that's coming. So what are those changes? They finalized on the fact that, yes, Scatter Bomb now only hits a target up to 2 times per hightail it, which is great. They increase the damage that each bomb does because you can't have them all hitting one person, which is also good. That means that you can get more damage out of fewer bombs, meaning you get what you want with hitting them, and you don't have to worry about making sure that you're timing it so that you're ending right on the boss or starting right on the boss. As long as you're passing through, you're going to get that out of your PvE environment, and you're not going to have the exploits that you can get in PvP.
Right.
The incendiary grenade has been redesigned. It was worth noting, we didn't mention it before, but the damage is now distributed evenly throughout the grenade duration rather than being front-loaded. It's going to consistently tick, and it is dealt every 1 second, which is down from 3 seconds. The reason they made it every 1 second instead of every 3 seconds is because if somebody passes through it, they want it to be applied as rapidly as possible. You can't, be in it for 3 seconds without ever having the slow applied to it that comes with it.
Okay.
Incendiary grenade also no longer has a cooldown. It used to be that the cooldown was the same duration as it being on the ground. Now that's been removed so that you can reposition as needed.
I see. But you can only have one at a time.
Right.
Okay. So
the other reason
they kept, which was the whole point of matching it before, except now they've just made it so you can do it more often. And then the downside of switching it all the time would just be that it costs energy to do it, correct?
Yeah, you can burn yourself out of energy if you just want to be spamming it all day, which doesn't really serve a purpose. But a lot of boss fight mechanics, and of course in PvP too, objects are moving. So that's kind of nice. The overall damage, actually, they made comment that it might be even a little bit higher, but they expect people to be moving out of it. Most boss fights aren't tank and spank. Bosses are moving as well. So with that reapplication, they do want it to continue to do as much damage as possible on target when it's on target. People as well as bosses being able to move out of them. And also a target under the effect of shock charge, which is one of the abilities you get out of that tree. If they are hit by incendiary grenade, will now be stunned. They can only be stunned once every 18 seconds.
Still, that's nice.
Yeah. Sabotage charge, what they did is Okay. They had initially made some changes based off of feedback from the community. They changed how these changes were implemented. It used to be lower in the tree, but now it's been moved further up for jury-rigged mods, which is quite a bit higher in the tree. When you put points into jury-rigged mods, it now also reduces the cooldown of Sabotage Charge. So Sabotage Charge itself is at the same values as it is live in 2.10 until you get into jury-rigged mods.
Oh, okay.
At which point its cooldown is reduced. Sabotage Charge cooldown is reduced by 4, 8, and 12 seconds, which is huge. It means you can reapply it quite a bit.
Right.
That's
And
that's
this would
up
be,
from
this would be in the middle tree, the engineering tree.
yes.
That's what all this is about.
Yeah, and in
And
fact,
and actually because originally they had reduced the cooldown for both trees, or for both advanced classes, but they also nerfed the damage output. Well, those people
right.
that didn't have access to the middle tree, i.e. the operatives and scoundrels, were then having that, they were getting hit. Their damage was being reduced on that ability, and there was nothing they could do about that. It ends up this way leaving them alone, and deep in that tree, the gunslingers and snipers can get the reduced cooldown, quite a bit reduced. And on that same talent point, then they're also reducing its damage. I think it's 11% reduced in damage, but your application of it is far more frequently than every 11%. So it's a damage increase for those classes.
It's also an energy increase because in that middle tree, you regain energy when it pops off.
Exactly, and there are reduces in energy concerning Charge Bolt and a few other locations. So there's a lot of energy saving that's going into this as well. But those are really the damage changes and the most impactful ones.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. And of course, that's all Smuggler Gunslinger speak.
That's all right. So next we have changes for Sorks and Sages, the left-hand healing tree specifically. And we did talk about this before. This was where they're gonna. It's more about survivability and force management. And they added some stuff with survivability. But they also took Noble Sacrifice off the GCD, which is the big change. Anyway, where did it all end up, Pez?
I don't know. I don't play I don't heal in PvP on a Sage because Madness is so overpowered. But this change I feel strictly for ranked PvP because they're in a fairly good spot in war zones. I think they do just fine. It's just ranked PvP that they struggle, and they do need some help. But I feel like they're reaching for a solution to a design problem, really. And it's not that the class is poorly designed. I think it's great. It's just not built for PvP, unfortunately. You've got to. I mean, it's a turret healer. They got to stand in one place for the most part. So now they have all these tools, and I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that mechanic works very well. I guess we'll just have to see. But now they have a lot of stuff, and it could almost be powerful. I know somebody was mentioning that new the force speed that has an AoE debuff.
The hindered effect.
Offensively, yeah, and that could just, wreck teams. I feel like, a healer could just run in the middle and then sprint back
Force
out,
feed out.
and and it just cripples, a team in a team fight. So I do think I do see how it can go both ways.
I'm envisioning a few vanguards or even a tank Shadow, and they just pull the other team into a group on top of their stage. And the stage just sprints away and says, "Suck us!"
Yeah. And so now they've got all these tools. They just keep throwing defensive, abilities at them, hoping that they'll do better. And I just think it's more of they're just not mobile enough to compete in ranked. Unfortunately, I don't know. Like I said, I don't heal in ranked, and I don't heal too much in PvP. I've done it occasionally, but in Warzones they're fine. So this was strictly for ranked, I feel like.
Yeah.
I
And
wonder
then,
if that might be an indication that in the next expansion 3.0 they might
yeah,
add with talent points or whatever or new abilities another instant cast or something along the, or even give them a hot finally,
yeah,
um, in order to just to give them some mobility for the PvP environment.
Spammable dot. Yeah.
yeah. Anybody who's played a op healer, the spec just it feels like it was designed for PvP.
Oh, totally.
It's
And
great.
they've done some great things with mitigation and whatnot on the commandos and giving them their bouncing shield thing,
Yep, yep.
on everybody.
They're much
So
better.
they're much better than sages, but that's only because they have like what, one, maybe two more instant casts, which gives them just a little bit of mobility because they are still a cast heavy class, but they are representing much better in PvP now.
Yeah, they're also kind of beefy. Um,
Yeah, the heavy armor
in
helps a whole
general,
lot.
Yeah, but
So
I'm interested about what if anybody else plays one, what they think about the global cooldown on Noble Sacrifice. It feels like my initial thought was, yeah, it just makes sense. Why not do that? But at the same time, the whole challenge of that spec as a healer is force management. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. And so now you're giving them it. I was trying to think of an ability that relates to it, and I feel like Jill, like the kinetic ward for tanks,
Okay.
that's not a global cooldown, right? I believe that's you just renew it as it goes, and it doesn't really mess up your rotation.
Right. It's off global, as I recall. It costs force,
Yeah, yeah, but it
but
doesn't.
has a global cooldown. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know as a healer, when I'm healing in an operation or flashpoint with the Sage, that global cooldown that I have to use that noble sacrifice can feel like an eternity. And you don't, sometimes you just don't really have the time to do it.
Right.
So it does feel like it'll be nice to just be able to integrate it in without it actually interrupting anything.
Right.
But does it, at the same time, does it take the game of the whole spec away? And
I wouldn't
now,
have thought so because you do still have to build up your stacks of resplendence using your channeled healing ability to actually, you won't get the zero. It will still be on the global cooldown unless you have more than one stack when you do it. Of course,
Right.
you should never be
right?
using Noble Sacrifice without any stacks because otherwise it hits your force regen.
Yeah.
So the whole play is pretty much identical as far as force management goes. It's just that it's off the GCD, which gives you more cooldowns to actually be doing healing
To actually be
abilities.
healing.
Yeah,
Right.
If
and
anything, it might make it harder because now you've got more stuff to do and you're going to be spending more force.
Right.
So
Yeah. Exactly. You'll be doing more, which means your healing will go up, but your force draining will be going up too. So.
the health cost is still there, unless, and this is another change for PvP specifically, you do have the 4-piece PvP healing set bonus. I have changed that. So previously, it would restore 3% of max health over 6 seconds after you use Noble Sacrifice, but now it will actually just not consume any health. That's a change
okay.
for that.
Yeah,
For
But that's
PvP.
PvP only.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and in PvP, noble sacrifice isn't, force management isn't the issue. It's the fact that
Typically.
they just die so fast.
Yeah.
And
And they're addressing that
because
with a
they
hidden
can't be
change.
mobile while they heal, it's like
Yeah.
stand there and try and survive and die because you're not moving, or move and not heal yourself and die because you can't heal.
And then bubble and hope everybody runs away from you.
Well, and when they did add that little bubble tail attached to their force barrier, that certainly helped for
Yeah,
survivability, but it still just doesn't help the healers. Madness sages and sorks are doing great, but
All right. Anything more to say? Can we move on?
No, that's about it. I mean, it's a nice change. It'll be good. Yeah.
All right. Lastly, and this is Pez's particular area of expertise, Deception Assassins. This is the middle tree, and Infiltration for Shadows. So, what's up with it, Pez?
Yes, the bottom of the barrel PvE DPS tree is finally getting a little love. The Not a lot, not as much as Madness. It's not. I've seen the results of a lot of the people who have tested it on the server, the PTS, and it doesn't have the quite the jump that Madness did, but it's a boost. It's still not quite as good, but it's going to have better DPS. The changes. It's funny because they announced all the changes, and it was buff, 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 and then they just threw in that little nerf at the bottom, and you kind of read through it, and I had to reread it a couple times, and I was like, took me a second, and I'm like, no way, they can't do this change. That was my initial reaction. I'm of course
which
referring
one?
to the
Yeah.
force potency recklessness change. That's kind of the big one here.
It was just
The other
stacking
one-
to 2 instead of 3?
Yeah. The other ones are just subtle buffs to PvE DPS, where your procs are going to happen a little more often, and you're going to be able to dump your 3 stacks a little bit more often. But the big one was the force potency, and my initial reaction, I was not, it kind of, it takes a lot away from it, in my opinion. But after looking at it, it probably wasn't that big of a deal. Basically, you pop recklessness or force potency, whatever, and it gives you an instant hard-hitting ability. But now you get 2 stacks, and you have to get that last stack somewhere else. And again, I was trying to figure out an ability that kind of relates to it, and I'm not really sure. The best thing I could come up with was Smash Spec. A lot of people are familiar with that tree. That 3 stacks that you get, that you pretty much have on demand, right? I mean, you can get that when you want it, and then you can dish out that big smash on demand.
Yep.
Imagine if they only gave you 2 stacks with that ability, and you had to use something else in your rotation to get that 3rd one before you can use that hard-hitting ability.
Right.
That's kind of what it's going to do. It's going to add just basically 1 more cooldown. In PvE, it's not a big deal, but in PvP, it is kind of a big deal.
Because that's going to hit your burst pretty quick.
Yes. And I guess my biggest issue, it's not really a huge deal, but my biggest issue is that the spec is designed as an on-demand burst spec. And that little tweak really kind of changes the whole feel of the spec. And so now you're kind of gutting what the spec was designed to do. You have a few burst abilities that you can use when you need them, and now all of a sudden you have to kind of ramp up to it a little bit. I mean, it's not much, but in PvP, you need it when you need it, So it's an odd change, but luckily there was enough threads that were started, people complaining, and they pulled it. So now it's back to the way it was, and it's just straight buffs. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they decided not to change it because too many people were upset about it.
Okay, so the actual live that'll be coming out on Tuesday is that you still get all 3 and all the other buffs exist.
Yep. So.
Wow. Okay.
Voices were heard.
Yeah, so more
Good.
saber
So
conduit,
basically-
take slashes, all that stuff.
It's all
Yep.
good. So it's just straight buff.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh, wow. All right.
So.
Are
like
you
I said,
considering playing it over Madness, or are you going to stick with Madness?
it's going to be better in specific fights that need burst. I'll probably be using it once we start on Brontez,
Sure.
but
Right.
for the most part, Madness is still going to be a little bit better on most fights. But
And that's just for min-maxing your DPS.
right.
And
It's not
you
too
still
far
don't think these changes, even leaving in the instant 3 stacks, it's not really going to be making it near as competitive for PvP?
It's funny because it's weird how people complain about that spec not being good in PvP when nothing has changed, and 4 months ago everybody complained about how overpowered it was. And it just brings up the whole balance wheel and I'm curious as to what you
Perception.
guys think about it. Right. Do you think they should just, take turns buffing each class? I mean, like I said, infiltration hasn't changed, and it used to be really strong, and now people feel it needs to be buffed, but nothing changed. Everything just got buffed around it, and so now it kind of struggles, and it pales in comparison to Madness, which is just absurdly overpowered. And so,
I think that honestly, BioWare has made up a habit of very proactively addressing squeaky wheels that may not be based off of anything. That there is certainly perception, and I mean, you see this happen where what they do is they increase somebody, and I don't think that all of the buffs that they've handed out have ever, have necessarily made that spec on that class OP. It's made them viable. In most cases, there are exceptions, but in most cases, I think it's actually just made them better. Not necessarily the flavor of the month, but everybody goes rushing to it because they see that it's improved, and because no one's playing the other one, they think that it's weaker. But it's not always the case, especially when so often you see people that they play the tree they want to play, whether or not anybody makes any changes to it, and it turns out they can still do really well with it, regardless of what the population says it is. And even oftentimes be, max in their operations group, max DPS, in the spec that's supposed to be one of the weakest in the game.
Yeah, that's meta though. Like that's how it works.
I think a lot of people also for PvP, I think a lot of people neglect to remember, and I mean it's understandable, right? Everything ebb and flows, and that's why I like the fact that these class changes have been happening so much more frequently, because it keeps people pushing and it makes the meta more unknown, so that people can play the classes that they want. Things keep changing. That's a good thing. But a lot of people seem to forget that PvP in this MMO is one of the most well-balanced PvPs of any MMO. I mean, I haven't played all of them extensively enough to say that it's the best, but it's definitely better than the vast majority of other MMOs out there. And the only reason people have quit playing their PvP in this game, it hasn't had anything to do with the viability or the balance per se. It's the non-responsiveness, which BioWare's been addressing so much better.
But is that necessarily? I don't know how I feel. I don't really care either way. I think having a rotating flavor of the month class doesn't necessarily bother me that much. But also, if they were just to not change anything for like a really long time and allowed players to change strategies, for instance, running a double Madness assassin team in ranked, and then forcing players to come up with a counter build, which then everybody.
The only reason that doesn't work is because of their restrictions on people queuing in ranked. Because the populations are artificially forced to be so low with the restrictions to subscription and the lack of cross-server PvP, it means that perceived flavor of the month is what's played. And people aren't playing the perceived weaker ones, at least not near in the populations that you need in order for people to find, it's like, okay, Sentinel is flavor of the month. You don't see people going and finding out, okay, what are the classes that I need to play to defeat Sentinel? Instead, they all rush to Sentinel because they know that's how they can get there quick, and that's what everybody else is doing, and the population isn't large enough for those people that are dedicated to the classes that they want to play to actually find those strategies and work with teammates. I mean, and part of that is also because fours aren't functioning with the smaller populations the way that they need to. So, yes, I think that you're right. At the same time, because of the other problems that we've already beaten into the ground, you don't get to see that development from the community. So,
but is that something BioWare needs to do?
That's why I think that the frequent class changes to change perceptions is a very good thing. I don't think perception always reflects reality, but because of the rapid class changes, people actually tend to play what they like longer, rather than changing as frequently, because they know that they're everybody's rotating in and out.
Final word, Pez, and then we wrap up.
Ranked was probably a bad example. I just meant in PvP in general. I like both ways. I do like what you said about changing it to create variety and drawing people's attention across the board. But I do think it would be cool to have everything kind of set and allow players to develop counter strategies to what already exists, and that would be kind of cool to follow too. So
I
don't
totally
really care.
agree.
I
I
like
do
it,
think that you're right.
either way.
Non-ranked, those
Right.
opportunities to even
Yeah,
develop that are actually quite a bit higher, especially since you can queue with 4 into 8s. Non-ranked
Yeah.
is actually a lot more. Well, there's a lot
Yeah,
more
I
opportunities. Just
agree.
like an operation, there's a lot more opportunities for you to create counterbalances.
Yeah,
But that's why
ranked
so
is
many
like,
people that they were so much more fond of the 8s, and there is that poor. They lost a huge population because they made ranked only 4s.
yep,
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, who knows
I
what will come with the X-Pack.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
All
definitely like
right.
having more changes the way they've been doing it recently. It's possible for games to make too many changes, but that's sort of rare. I think it's more common to have what we had like the first year of the game, where the whole meta just calcifies into Smash Monkey all the time, every game.
Right.
And that sort of thing. And now that we have some changes, yeah, you get a lot more variety, and partly because they do the actual balancing, and then just like you were saying, partly because it gives people freedom to move around and try new things as changes come in.
All right. Thank you, Pez. Well, those class changes
Yeah.
coming this coming Tuesday on 9th September with Game Update 2.10, which will also include the new tactical completing the Forged Alliances story arc.
Can't wait.
All
All
right.
right. That's a
Yeah, me
show.
too.
If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our
Utini Rage.
Guild on the Empire side, do a /C join Utini to join the Utini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter. We're on @OotiniCast. I Twitter under my own name @Brandon L. Starr, and Tio uses his name @Jason Etheridge. Red Twitter's under @R3DN4, or you can watch him on twitch.tv/R3DN4. And Pez Twitter's under @MyVeryOwnFlag with the O-A-0 in own. My very own flag. Check out our website, OotiniCast.com, which has links to our presence on Google Plus and Facebook. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, and we're also on Stitcher and Spreaker. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. And thank you to the chat room, and thank you to Red and Pez.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
See you next week.
And do you want me
Keep
to
recording,
mention to the
keep
chat room
recording.
what happens tomorrow to you? Or leave it as is?
Go ahead.
I mean, it didn't need to be in the show, but yeah,
That's
chat room. Tomorrow, I will be joining Larry and Heather, pretty little Sith, on the Republic. It's reincarnation as a guest host, which will be kind of
Yay.
interesting. Yeah,
We will watch
Right.
with interest.
yeah, I'm interested in it. So come
Yep, and
watch and join that chat room.
that is The Republic on GameBreaker.tv.
That's right.
All right, everyone keep recording. And chat room, thank you very much for coming. And we will see you next week. Probably, yeah, it will be episode 164 on the Wednesday following 2.10. Lots to talk about then. So have a good evening.
Have a good night.